Hello and welcome. My name is Dale Richards, CEO of App Creative, an app development company on the Silicon Slopes of Utah. We're on a mission to build apps that change the world. If you want to build apps, grow your SaaS business, and make money doing cool software entrepreneur-related stuff, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell. Today we're talking with Josh Little, founder and CEO of Volley. Josh founded Volley in March 2020 at the height of the pandemic, and since, Volley has helped to provide a new way to move work forward regardless of the time or place, using asynchronous video. Using a threaded conversation, Volley helps you bring the richness of an in-person conversation into your day-to-day business conversations. Before we get to the interview, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to get updates on the latest videos. And with that being said, let's get to the interview. I first met you in a room full of people, a ballroom, with these users that were being onboarded onto your Volley app. And I have to say,
really?
that takes a lot of guts. Anyone who can onboard several users at the same time onto an application, I know what that feels like. So I just have a lot of respect for
Well, thank you.
So I'm thrilled that we can talk a little bit today about Volley. Why don't you tell us about Volley, the app, and where the concept came from? I know it's really similar to Marco Polo. So tell us more about what it is and why you started building it.
Yeah, Volley, it's a video messaging app for remote teams. Think of it as Marco Polo for teams or for work. And the idea very much came from, I've been thinking about the problem for over a decade now, having built a company called Bloomfire, which was very much trying to solve how to get the right information to the right people at the right time. And then falling in love with tools like Marco Polo and like Snapchat and asynchronous video communication. And then the pandemic hits and every team has to go remote and figure out how to still communicate. And then we get back-to-back Zoom meetings, and now we have kind of this problem where we either have to meet constantly or we have to slack our faces off. And I thought, I know what the world needs, an async video-first communication tool to allow remote teams to communicate better. So that's the idea.
Okay, wait. So then describe your timeline relative to the pandemic then, because it sounds like the pandemic kind of played a role, or that there was some pandemic context to your rollout.
Sure. Well, the role was just I was kind of looking for my next thing. I'd taken 4 years off since my last thing, spent a couple of years validating different ideas, everything from RV park roll-up to car air freshener to pickle company, and several software ideas. But it was very much like, no, pass on this, pass on that. I was looking for the right thing, and there's very much a right time component to the right thing. And the timing of the pandemic was just timed with me trying to find a canvas to paint my magnum opus, enter Volley.
So did you develop and build this then all during the pandemic, or was it already in the works?
We started end of May last year, built a dog food prototype that our team used by the end of June, just to try to see if this could work for team communication. Rolled it out to a private beta to about 700 companies beginning of September last year, worked with them to try to perfect the app and make sure that the medicine was actually curing the disease, and launched cross-platform earlier this year. And we've just been iterating and trying to just build a product that people download. They're in conversations with people they're trying to move work forward with and never want to delete. So that's the game.
May, June to September.
Yeah.
So we're talking about just a few months really to get this first thing out. Yeah.
Really talented founding team. I won the co-founder lottery this time. And so, really talented team. Now, we were iOS only at that point, so we weren't building on 4 platforms like we are today, just to try to make sure we're not, if we're making the mistakes, we're not making them times 4 at least. So quick timeline, and very talented team. Like the founding team, we've all exited companies, we've all failed, we've been around the block and have very good hands.
Tell me a little bit more about that iterative process, because you said you had 4 years in between businesses, right? I mean, what was it that you were coming out of, the previous venture?
Quizzer was the last one.
Okay.
Yep.
How many is that for you?
That's number 3.
Number 3, okay.
So Volley's number 4.
Okay.
That I talk about. You could probably find my name on some LLCs in the state of Utah and Michigan, the companies you've never heard of, but they were just, experiments.
Right. Can you describe the role of like fast failure in your journey? Because if Volley is number 4, and you've also had lots of concepts that you've validated or invalidated in the interim between 3 and 4, I'm curious to know your take on like, hey, how do you get in and just disprove stuff as quickly as you possibly can?
Yeah, so I've actually developed a whole process around that. I have a couple hundred ideas that I keep track of and think somebody should just do these things, and I keep track of them in a spreadsheet, and there's a rubric tied to that where I grade these ideas that kind of help surface something to the top based on my goals for my next thing and what I want to work on and build. So there's that process. Then I've developed this validation worksheet. It's just a series of like 50 questions that I have to answer when I start working on a project. And the first thing I have to do is write a test to figure out like what would make this thing pass or fail. Well, I need to be able to figure out how to source cucumbers from this farm, and I need to be able to find a year-round supply of dill. This is a pickle company, right?
Sure.
So I just start working through the worksheet. There's nothing magic about these questions. They're written in many different books, Lean Startup, Lean Business Canvas, all of these things. It's just my own personal collection of like, these are the things that matter to me. And so it's just the discipline of forcing yourself to be able to answer those questions with some degree of confidence using data. And if I don't have the data, I have to go out and figure it out. So that means usually building some crappy prototype or some basic version of the product or a mock-up to show someone, and that could be the ideal user, and start getting feedback. So my goal is very much kill something as fast as possible, and or validate it. And that's very much how Quizzer came to be, because once upon a time when I built Bloomfire, it was a huge bet. Like Eric Ries had not written Lean Startup in 2008, and I just had this crazy idea that people ought to share knowledge at work socially, kind of like Twitter, but Twitter was a new thing, and so it was a very forward-thinking idea. It turns out I was right, just quite a bit early, but Bloomfire was a bold build. I talked to 0 users. I did 0 validation before we brought that thing to market. And yeah, once we got to market, we realized, we should have got out of the building, Steve Blank, right? And talked to more users. So now I know better and have a process.
Was Bloomfire, that was number 1?
That was number 2.
That was number 2.
Maestro was number 1.
Okay, so describe your relationship to failure from like Bloomfire 1 and 2 versus now you're on number 4, right? So I'm curious to know if your attitude was, disprove things as quickly as possible when you were still working on ventures number 1 and 2. Like how did your relationship to failure change over time?
Yeah, I had no relationship to to finding failure fast with those. It was like with Maestro, I quit my 6-figure corporate job cold turkey and decided I was going to build an e-learning company the next day, and I knew very little about building e-learning. I just knew I had to figure it out. So we did, but we got lucky, and with Bloomfire, we were right, but we got lucky. So, you can get lucky. You can get lucky multiple times in a row, but I'd rather not get lucky. So that's why I went from, like I said, RV parks to pickles to, different software platforms to Volley. And in fact, the very first iteration or the concept, there are many different ways that Volley could play in the world or be useful. And one of them we thought was sales. So we built a concept, not a prototype, just like design mock-ups, and I created a little video, and it was like Volley for sales. And I shared it with the world and on my networks, LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever, and kind of got a lot of blank stares, honestly. It was some people on the sell side were like, we need this. But most people on the buy side were like, this feels creepy. I don't know that I want to be on video, and I don't know that I want to communicate this way. And we actually, from that first experiment, that concept, we got some signals that were like, this could actually be good for team communication and meetings. And so then we built another concept, very similar screens, very similar technology, but just a different story. Like, hey, here's a team. This is what stand-up looks like. Here's how we're unblocking each other throughout the day. And it was just like slam dunk. Like, I've never had a survey go viral before. This one started to go viral. People started sharing it within their companies. People that I'd never didn't know or hadn't heard of started filling it out. And I was like, oh. And 97% of those people said, yes, we need this like yesterday. So I was like, okay, we got it. Let's build this thing. And that's when we got the band together.
I love how you described different market responses. On one hand, you got the blank stares, and on the other hand, your survey went viral. I think it's important to underscore how both of those are really important feedback.
Yeah.
Like having the blank stares, it's easy for someone to say, well, gosh, I got nowhere. I totally failed. And that's not necessarily the case. Like you want to be able to take that as a valuable input to say, great, I got the feedback that I needed. And now I know that that's not the path that we should follow, and to not be discouraged by that. So I admire your ability to do that. On Volley, now you've already had all this practice failing quickly and disproving concepts and stuff like that. I'm curious to know, what kind of technical challenges did you have on Volley, if any? I mean, I'm sure, was it just a breeze? You just pumped it out? I mean, it sounds like your timeline was pretty aggressive. But.
We didn't realize how ambitious this project was, actually. We thought we could maybe just build a mobile product, but we quickly realized that for the team communication piece, people at work want to communicate with their computer, not their phone. They don't want to be constantly picking up their phone. So we realized, one, we need to build cross-platform. Whoa, that's big. And then two, it's video first. So asynchronous video is the hero feature of Volley. 80% of Volley sent our video. That's why people come. That's why people stay in Volley. So take asynchronous video and that whole pipeline, and then couple that with the expectations of a communication product. Communication products have like 10x the expectations. This is what I'm finding out, of like any CRUD app that manages my sleep patterns or my daily tasks or whatever. Communication tools need to be snappy, they need to be responsive, they need to work. So we tried to use some off-the-shelf technologies like TalkBox or like Twilio for the video piece. They just were not performant enough, and so we've had to basically roll our own video pipeline. So it's a proprietary stack. So that was kind of the first technical challenges that we had to figure out in the first 6 weeks there. But once we got over that hurdle, I wouldn't say it's smooth sailing, but it was a little clearer path to success.
You said that you wanted to build a product that was more than just like a mobile product, that it had to be cross-platform. This is more like a robust enterprise communication tool. Mm-hmm. Is that the principal difference between Volley and Marco Polo? Like, if so, or if not, what are the differences?
Yeah, good question. We get that all the time, and I wrote a blog article and kind of lay out the differences. But Volley was built to help teams move work forward faster. So with that, we have the desktop app, on Mac and PC that we needed to build, as well as the whole workspace and team structure where you can invite your team to a workspace. They can see each other, start conversations and channels with one another. So we like to think we're like as organized as Slack, but as easy to use and start a conversation as Zoom. So the hero feature is similar to Marco Polo. It's asynchronous video, similar to Snapchat, Voxer, some of those. And that, therefore, the record button is forefront. There's a ready to record state because we think that's kind of the key differentiator and necessary for remote teams. Well, at least remote teams that are trying to do big things where the stakes are high and communication matters. Like if communication doesn't matter to you, yeah, use Slack and loom around all day if you want. But if communication actually matters and relationships matter to you, then video first, right? Because it's more efficient, it's more effective, it's the full spectrum. So I don't even remember where this question was, what you asked, but I'm going to stop talking.
Oh, what were the other differences between Marco Polo? Yeah, but that's great. So then tell us about the monetization strategy for Volley, if you can.
Yeah. So because it's such a big build, cross-platform, all these platforms, startups, there's only so much you can raise as seed capital. We've decided that we're going to focus, and because we know the path to success at Volley is product-led growth. Like my last two companies were performance marketed and sold their way to success. That could be the path for Volley, but it feels like it's slow pedaling something that could be much bigger. So we know that product-led growth is what we need to achieve, which means users need to invite other users. and that needs to happen primarily in a free product. So we're trying to make sure that the free product that we're building does exactly that. That there's a K factor of 2+, that users are inviting other users. The thing is kind of inherently viral. The sale is dividing. Once we've nailed that, and we don't know exactly what the feature set needs to be to get that to work in the mix and the presentation of those features. So that's very much what we're working through right now. And we feel like there's one more big evolution that needs to happen in the free product, and that's kind of transcriptions as a technology being infused throughout the product. And then, yeah, we have hundreds of ideas of cool features and that or enhanced versions of existing features that people would be willing to pay for. So we'll monetize down the road once we've nailed product-led growth.
But you're also trying to like kind of draw that boundary around, okay, what is the free set of features?
Yeah.
Like there's all this other stuff that you may even already have, but like what you're going to carve out in the future is like the free part of freemium. That's what I'm hearing you say. Is that fair?
For sure. And in the past, I've built both at the same time. I build the free and the monetized features and the paywall in between and all the billing and pricing pages. And this is a lot of work to try. You only get like one at bat each week, right? Like, what are you building? You're building one here, building one here. Oh, and then we've got to add something else in the middle to make this all work, and then conversion throughout. It's a lot to build. If we were building like a simple CRUD app, that's easier to do, but high stakes communication platform with video, there's a lot to be done. So we're just focusing all of our efforts on what we feel is the most important thing, and just like nailing the free product and making that grow.
So exciting, very exciting. So if you could have one piece of advice for all of the softwarepreneurs out there that are on our channel watching this, because everyone is like, a lot of them are first-time softwarepreneurs. Like they want the app ideas. They're looking for like tips and tricks on how to get this first app to market, and they're not on company number 4, for example, right? What would you say to someone who's on company number 1?
Well, a couple things. Well, first, download Volley, because you're probably going to need to communicate. Your communication probably matters. But 2, it's actually in line with your business. I've had really good success getting a product to market quickly using an outsourced firm. Mm-hmm. And we actually did that with Volley. Even though the founding team had really strong mobile and back-end chops, we didn't really have like desktop chop and web chops. So we used a firm that I've used in the past out of Michigan called Atomic Object to help us get a desktop product to market. And because they have the resources and can jump all on it and kind of copy what we're doing on the mobile app, we were able to get that product to market in like 2 months versus like hiring a team and spinning that up. I don't know that this is like first time around sort of advice. So
for like pocket-wise, and budget-wise?
Not budget-wise. Like this is really like, yeah, if you've built a couple companies and can raise several million in funding, that's how you play, and that's how we played. However, let me actually answer the question that you asked, which is like first time around, is make sure that the medicine actually cures the disease. Make sure that there is at least product promise fit, that people want to take the medicine that you are planning to create. And you can do that cheaply through prototypes or quick concepts, but like the cheapest way that you can learn and get signal, like I did with Volley. When I said Volley for meetings, it was like, yes, that's it. And that was kind of an unmistakable signal. It was like night and day between Volley for sales versus Volley for meetings or for teams, right? So just focus your energy there, make sure that there's product promise fit. And if there is, you can probably hack your way to product market fit.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
You made a couple of references to your co-founders and about how you had great co-founders. Mm-hmm. What is a great co-founder and how do you find one?
Wow, that's a big topic. Great co-founder is someone who wants it as bad as you do. And what I found is also well matched with you. And I think this is, I've never even said these words. I think there is some principle to finding a co-founder. This is why 20-year-olds work with 20-year-olds and not 45-year-olds, right? There's something about you being at the same level, willing to play with the same game face and intent that I think makes magic. And then the other part of that is you offset each other in some meaningful way. So it's, 3 React engineers probably aren't going to make the greatest co-founding team, but a React engineer plus a designer plus someone who understands like go-to-market and sales or marketing could be an interesting combination. So that's why the Volley founding team is me with kind of the sales and go-to-market, Joe, who's very much head of product design, and then Gru and Spencer, who are both engineers. And the 4 of us make up the leads of each team at Volley, and it's worked really well.
This has been so great. Thank you so much for coming and sharing a little bit about Volley and about your journey. I'm so excited to share this with our channel.